Hi, this is Jurgen Rasmussen. Welcome to the Provocative Hypnosis Vlog. This is an episode about what to do when thoughts and feelings are overwhelming. Listen, we've all had the experience that sometimes our thoughts and our feelings can be so overwhelming that we feel completely lost and that there's no way out. So I'm going to offer you some very practical tips and strategies to use with yourself, and also stuff that you can apply with your clients if you happen to see clients for a living. Now, a lot of what makes thoughts and feelings so seemingly overwhelming and compelling is that we tend to get lost in them. So for many of us, if we're not engaged in some task or something meaningful, many of us just get lost in rumination and lost in thought. And when we get lost in thought, the world disappears. And when the world disappears, our thoughts and feelings become extremely, seemingly real, as if they are all that is. And how could that not be overwhelming in a sense? So sometimes this is called, one example of this is something that's somewhat mistakenly called highway hypnosis. But it's something that we've all experienced. That experience of driving somewhere, arriving at your destination safely, but then going, how on earth did I end up here? Like you have no memory of the trip. You haven't seen anything. You haven't heard anything. Essentially, the world disappeared and you were completely lost in thought. So some studies have shown, at Harvard in collaboration with Virginia, that when you put people in a room and it's only them and their thoughts, there's no distractions, there's nothing to watch, there's no one to talk to, most people tend to find that uncomfortable. But there's a way in which you can make a figure ground shift so that you don't so easily get lost in thought, so that they're no longer overwhelming, and that you have a sense of proportion around it. And one trick to do that is to practice keeping the world as frame. Or if you're sitting in a room, keeping the room as frame. So one thing I'll very often do with clients then is I'll have them have their eyes open, and I'll have them keep the room as frame, meaning go out into peripheral vision so that you can see, both sides of the room while you are looking forwards, and just keep the room as frame, and just start to notice that, there's the coat hanger, over there, and there's the chair, and that's the carpet. And then as thoughts appear, just notice, what am I going to have for lunch thought just appeared over there. Or let's say that a anxious feeling appears. Okay, so the carpet's here and the anxious feeling is bubbling up around here. But practice just naming, stating your experience while keeping the room as frame with your eyes open. Because this trains you to view thoughts and feelings as just another appearance in the room, in the open space of consciousness or awareness, if you will. So you train yourself to have perspective as you think. This is also very useful if you're working with clients and you have someone who's terrified of their own inner experience, who are kind of traumatized by their experience. Sometimes, having them close their eyes and remember things and imagine things can be overwhelming to them, because they immediately get lost in a cascade of feelings and thoughts and images. For some of them, even trying to meditate, using the breath as objects, they just get lost in their internal world. So having them with their eyes open in peripheral vision, keeping the room as frame, and deliberately thinking some of those thoughts and feeling some of those feelings, naming them while keeping the room as frame, starts to give them a sense of proportion. That it's just one appearance out of many. And also using language to label it is very, very useful. What you'll also notice is that when you do this, your experiences come and go a lot more quickly. It's even if you keep the room as frame and you deliberately think about something upsetting, but you name it and keep the room as frame, you'll notice that it dissolves a lot quicker. It's a lot harder to hold on to. And that feeds into the realization of thoughts and feelings and sensations and perceptions as transitory experiences. They're sorted, they're kind of put in perspective. So there's a figure ground shift, right? There's less of that highway hypnosis phenomena happening in life. Now, this is a skill. This is something to practice. So I, for example, meditate every day. I usually spend 45 to an hour, meditating, eyes closed meditation. And I might share, my routine for that in some other video. But I also have a walking meditation routine because we have a dog, and the dog needs his walks, and you might as well practice. So what I do with my walking meditation is that I start out by just looking for my face and noticing that I can't see it. You can do this too. You can look at the world and then turn attention very quickly towards what's looking. And notice that, where a face was supposed to be, there's just the world. So notice this in your own experience. Just look for your face or look for your head really quickly and notice that you can't see it. Now, some of you might think, well, of course I have a face. Like, of course I have a head. That's just silly. Well, from an outside third person perspective, you do. That's true. But from ground zero, from your perspective, you actually don't. So imagine that you and I met and I'm 2 meters away from you. You would then say, yeah, but Jürgen, of course you have a face. I see your head, I see your face. And that's right, you do from that perspective. Now, if you were to come close enough, you'd just see patches of skin. If you came even closer than that and you had the right, microscope or whatever, you'd start to see cells and you'd start to see molecules and you'd start to see atoms and particles. And if you came close enough, you'd see probably just empty space, consciousness itself, right? Now, if you started to move back out, you'd start to see particles and atoms and molecules and cells and muscles and patches of skin, and then you'd see a face. But if you were to move even further away, you'd see my urban face. And if you moved, out into space, you'd see my planetary face, right? So how I look completely depends upon your perspective. Now, we're all trained to see ourselves the way we appear to look from a third-person perspective. And we need to do that to be functional in the world. I'm not arguing against that. But from my perspective, I don't see a face. I see your face, but I don't see my face. There's no head. There's just space for the world to appear in. And that takes away that sense of being stuck inside a head watching a world out there. By the way, what I'm just referring to here, I have to give full credit to Douglas Harding and his headless approach. He was the one who kind of discovered this as a pointer. It's kind of the Western version of direct path meditation. And it's really, and you can check out Douglas Harding. He has videos on YouTube and he has books, and Sam Harris talks about this in his Waking Up book. So it's a really interesting pointer of sorts. Like, for example, if you ask someone to do a self-portrait, they'll always draw themselves as they seem to look from the outside. But if I were to do an actual self-portrait, I would draw my hands and my, white sweater and some legs. Like, that's how things look from my perspective, right? So a lot of what makes thoughts overwhelming as well is that it seems like they're in our head, that we experience thoughts in our head. But that's not your actual experience. Notice that you don't see a head, you don't see a face, you see something, right? But if you look back, there's nothing to see. Now, you might touch, but you don't touch a face. You feel sensations of softness and hardness and tingling and pressure. These sensations appear in the same empty space of awareness or consciousness that the world appears in. They all appear out of the same no thing that you fundamentally are. So let me cover this too. So for example, people might say, yeah, but I can see my face. I can see my face in the mirror, right? So now I can see Jürgen's face, on the computer screen. But notice that face is seen on the computer screen. That face is seen in the mirror. It's not on your shoulders. So if you follow the eyes of the image on the screen or on the mirror and you look back towards what's looking, there's nothing there. There's just empty space. So what I do when I do my walking meditation is that I start out by just looking for my face, turning awareness onto itself, and just finding no thing. There's just the world. Right? You can also imagine having no head or just move into peripheral vision. And then notice that thoughts and feelings happen in the same empty space of awareness that the car and the barking dog and the smell of lasagna and whatever appears in. It all appears in the same empty space of consciousness. I just walk around like that and kind of practice noticing thoughts and feelings as appearances in the same open space of awareness while not losing the world. It's just another appearance in the same open space of awareness. This is a really liberating and nice thing to do. And I also notice that everything appears in me, right? So if I meet you, there's only one face in the conversation. The store, the car, the dog, everything appears in the same open space of awareness. Now, another really nice benefit of doing your walking meditation like this is that you'll notice that from time to time the world will disappear and you'll be lost in thoughts. And then you'll have the experience of thoughts and feelings appearing, but the world remaining. And that's a very different experience. So you'll start to notice the kinesthetics or the sensations of keeping the world or being lost in thought. And the better you become at noticing that and kind of calibrating how that feels differently, the more choice you'll have in terms of being lost in thought or not. So I highly recommend using this with yourself, practice daily so that this becomes second nature to you, and practice with your clients. This can often be a very good way of helping people who are overwhelmed, where typical other eyes closed versions are too overwhelming or too traumatizing. So if you have any comments or questions around this, feel free to post them where you find the video. If my ideas resonate, know that I see clients from all over the spinning planet on Skype every day. If you'd like to have a session with me, if you'd like to solve something or learn more about your subjective experience, you can reach me at provocativehypnosis.com. Also know that I am available for seminars if you want to learn my psychological illusion model, and also for mentoring if you want to become a better agent of change. All right, till next time.